worked in the street like a slave. Keep a rugged dress code, always in this stress mode. That shit gon' send you to your grave. So, you think I don't know that? Nigga, hold that. Nigga, hold that. Nigga, hold that. From the street, cousin, you know the drill. I'm 999 flies short of a mill. Yeah, boom. Kidnap that boom. It's the perfect.
Here we go, here we go, here we go. Another edition of Birds of a Feather. Welcome. It's AJ Suburban Princess here with a lot on my mind, considering that there have been major moves going on, and I'm sure there's plenty going on as I speak, but not posted to social media yet or announced on all the press. But we got trades going on, ladies and gentlemen. We got some birds moving from the nest, some probably working deals as we speak, or some probably waiting and seeing to see what other deals are being made before they sign on the dotted line. Free agency has been a trip. This is the part of the season I actually do enjoy. I don't enjoy listening to all the speculation all over media and radio, but I do enjoy hearing who actually physically is leaving. Well, welcome once again to my podcast. This will be a brief one because this will probably be a part 2 and a 3, I'm sure, because by the end of this month and just before the draft in April, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of bombs dropping left and right. Howie Roseman is doing the damn thing already. So far, he has decided, well, he probably didn't decide, but he has a lot of money to work with the Eagles being rumored to being about almost $11 million over the cap. He has now traded Torrey Smith, the wide receiver and former Raven, and now Super Bowl champion with the Eagles, as well as Super Bowl champion with the Ravens. They're sending Torrey to Carolina Panthers with Cam and Dem. And they managed to trade him for one of their cornerbacks, Daryl Worley, who apparently is a Philly native. So that seemed to me like a fair trade. Apparently, Daryl doesn't demand a huge salary for the rest of his contract, so it really didn't do any damage to the cap or reduce it too much. It's just that Torrey apparently was going to demand probably $5 million more, and being that his play wasn't as consistent but timely as far as the Super Bowl and the NFC Conference Championship, Torrey earned another shot at another team to retire as a veteran. I forgot he had gotten a ring as a Raven. I totally forgot he was on the Ravens first. I just knew him from the 49ers, but someone reminded me he got a ring as a Raven, so that's good. So he is 2. So good for Torrey. He has family, like he said, in Conshohocken, so he's never going to not be an Eagle. But for him to be part of the first crew that actually made the first Super Bowl win, that's a good look for him, and that's a good look for any of the guys that leave. Apparently, there's still names being thrown about other teams that have made some splashes. Looks like Cleveland Browns are trying to ante up, speaking of the song that I entered with by MOP. It looks like the Browns traded up a lot of people to get at least a starting quarterback in Tyrod Taylor from the Bills, who was having a very shaky latter part of his season with the Bills when they finally made the playoffs, but never got past the first round. So good for Tyrod Taylor. I do believe he is has a mentor in Michael Vick. He's not flashy, but he has the arm of Michael Vick and that he can be sharp. But the few times that I did watch the Bills play lately, I wasn't too impressed. But I also feel like Tyrod kind of got benched a little early. And then for them to make that playoff run briefly, it just showed the Bill fans that he might have had a lot more to offer had they just stayed with him. But I think the Bills are feeling pressure to reinvent the wheel on their team. And so a lot of people are probably going to be moved on. But in the meantime, Cleveland Browns also got Jarvis Landry, who was with the Dolphins and seemed like he was in a war with deciding to be franchised or to leave and go to another team or be cut. So to find out that Jarvis Landry was willing even to leave Miami, who's going through a lot of behind-the-scenes drama with their front office and the recent firing of one of the members who was caught smoking cocaine on, well, not caught, but put out on blast, basically, smoking cocaine on video. Miami's going to need a major shakeup as well. Who knows if their quarterback is still going to come back starting. And I totally forget his name at the time, but everyone knows who the original starting quarterback was in Miami. I don't think Jay Cutler should stay there because I don't think Jay Cutler wanted to be there to begin with. I'm hoping he finally just takes the L and just retires because I really feel like he's the most lethargic quarterback in the NFL. And for someone who actually has a good arm, he's just kind of a waste, and it's sad. I just hope Miami gets themselves together. But yeah, Cleveland looks like they're trying to make some moves, and they also just recently got they sent their quarterback, DeShone Kizer, who was a rookie. They sent him to the Packers to back up Aaron Rodgers, who everyone is saying they're waiting for the rumblings of his huge contract as soon as Cousins decides where he wants to land. I think Cousins should be going to either Minnesota and or Denver. I feel like Denver needs a big lift in a quarterback, and I think their team is good enough that he could keep them moving. And I just feel like even if he's with the Vikings, that would just be good controversy, being that I'm sure the Eagles will be facing them in the first 1 or 2 weeks of the new season, being that they beat them. So that would be kind of a nice rematch because then technically Cousins would still be against us in the NFC. If he goes to Denver, that's a whole nother thing. So he wouldn't be an issue. But I think to make things interesting, I wouldn't be shocked if he did go to the Vikings just to kind of eclipse the hopes of any of the quarterbacks that are left there. Sam Bradford, who I don't think should come back, but I'm sure he's going to try. He's the most rich, non-playing, non-consistent quarterback in the NFL. And since they released, oh my gosh, I'm having a major blank. Forgive me. The young black quarterback, they released him, who I think deserves to start somewhere, but I wouldn't even mind if he came to the Eagles and just was considered a backup veteran. Eagles are very good at retraining and rehabbing quarterbacks, especially backup quarterbacks. And right now he needs to get a full season under him. For those who want to email me, AJRadioCaller at AOL, because I cannot remember the young quarterback from the Vikings name that they just cut. And I'm sure someone whoever's listening is saying it probably, and I'm just not. I'll remember as I keep talking. But either way, I think if they do decide to ship Nick Foles out as far as the Eagles, he could be someone to look at to back up Carson Wentz, because he would have time to learn a new team and then also have the more confidence to know that he could play. I mean, like I said, Eagles are kings and queens of being in the rehab business for players. It did that for Michael Vick. They did it for Jeff Garcia. There's so many backup quarterbacks that have lasted longer than they should have. Mark Sanchez under the Eagles emblem. So, or organization. So I feel like that would be a good look. Teddy, oh my God, it almost came to me. Anyway, so besides the Browns, the rumor is that people think that Saquon Barkley from Penn State should be going there first because, at this point, the Browns do not seem to have a very intelligent front office as far as selecting the right players for the first round and second round of the drafts. But we'll see what happens. I mean, they no longer have the same VP anymore. They got rid of Sashi, I think his name was. And now they're working under a whole new front office. So I'm hoping that the Cleveland Browns stop disappointing their fan base and finally get themselves in the playoff run for the coming year, because that would just be good television just to see a total franchise flip, just like the Eagles did in less than 2 years. So, and then what else was interesting? Mike Williams, I think his name is Mike. Yeah, I've done tons of research. Forgive me. Mike Williams, I think his name is, in Tampa Bay. He got signed to a 5-year contract. So that was good for him because I think he is a very good target. Let's just pray that Jameis gets his arm together and gets his control, because he is pretty much a loose cannon over there. So hyped, but he can't seem to get his team to believe in him. I wouldn't be shocked if Deshaun decides to leave there, or if he just decides to retire. I think Deshaun is too young to retire, but I'm just saying, if he doesn't find the need, I mean, I would leave Florida to come back to Philly, especially for the weather alone. But if the Eagles keep shifting around and it's a money thing, and he doesn't mind getting a pay cut at this point in his career, he should probably want to go back to the Eagles and at least retire. I think that would be just a fun look in general, just to have Deshaun back. I'm sure seeing the Eagles win the Super Bowl without him was kind of painful. And as well as it's been reported that Connor Barwin, who was a former linebacker for the team, he was very sad when he happy and sad. He said mixed emotions, apparently, in an article for GQ, basically talking about what it was like to see his team win without him. And I'm sure it doesn't feel good, but he also was a contender against the Eagles at one point before Carson went down. So, I think knowing that Connor's team was pretty much almost there is probably even really what makes him even more sad that the Eagles won. But I knew that the reason why Connor didn't stay at Eagle was just a cap thing. Would I like Connor to come back? Yes, I would. But he would obviously know that he wouldn't get paid. I think that's where Chris Long comes in and was so gracious to donate his whole salary because he knew he wasn't going to be making any money. I don't think Connor Barwin wants to come back just to work for dirt cheap at this point, especially now that he's probably finally getting a nice little chemistry in LA. He is more of an LA guy, I think, in spirit, because he's very chill. He's always been a very positive, community-oriented dude, but I did miss him in Philly, and that would be strangely, I think it would be weird, but it would be great to have his face come back if they decide to replace somebody in the linebacker position, if they cannot find that linebacker that they want. In the case that they do decide to package Kendricks and whoever else to go, I don't know if, Kendricks will be part of that Foles deal to get Foles moved on. The rumor is that people think that Foles should go to Buffalo if he does go anywhere. I wouldn't be shocked if Foles just stays put myself for the year and then decides to move on. I don't see Carson coming back until like late September, early October, possibly even if the video that recently surfaced of him throwing the football from a sitting position in the gym. I think that he's getting a little swole in the gym, and so I think a lot of people are starting to think it's going to translate to his knee. But tendons aren't anything to play with, and Carson pretty much jacked it up before he even got hit in the end zone. So he has a lot of stuff he has to work around that area that has to be 100% strong before he even starts running drills. So it's going to be excruciating to have to watch the press cover such a long process of rehab, but knowing that he won't have the pressure to have to start right away is a good thing. And I think that Foles is that insurance and that security blanket that you need. But there are veterans floating out there that some of them are still kind of useful. So that Bridgewater, thank you, Lord. There it is. Teddy Bridgewater. If he did come, he's a name that I think I would be interested in as far as a veteran quarterback. Now, mind you, the second and third spot is never really great. But if he doesn't mind being behind Nate Sudfeld and he learn and kind of relearn how to throw, and if they got Carson's throwing motion to be better, and I know there was rumors about Teddy Bridgewater's throwing motion, and people thought it was weird. Personally, I just think that's what always comes on black quarterbacks. There's always something that always is weird about them or odd or something that everyone's is fixated on. But I think Teddy's just a unique talent, and I don't think he's really been able to fluctuate because of that, his gruesome knee injury, and hence the reason why I think he would be even better on the team if Foles does go, because I think that him and Carson could probably commiserate on that kind of an injury if his was as heinous as it seemed. But besides all that, Torrey Smith going to the Panthers is interesting because the Panthers have a lot of promise, but they also have a lot of old players that probably need to leave the coop. They had the wide receiver from Florida State that I loved. I can't think of anybody's names, but he went to the Buffalo Bills, and then I think he ended up getting injured. Jordan Matthews, who used to be on the Eagles team, is on the Bills now, and he had a knee issue that apparently the rumor was that he was mentioning that he didn't feel like the medical staff that helped him when he was here really gave him a really good enough diagnosis, and that's why he ended up having to be sidelined his first year in Buffalo as well. So hopefully Jordan Matthews will be able to get his career back on top, because him and Carson are still so tight, and most of the guys were recently at Jordan Matthews' recent wedding. So there was rumors that people threw it out there on Twitter that Jordan Matthews would be nice coming back. I don't see a point in him coming back. I don't think he was that much of an effective part of the offense. And I think that his whole purpose was, to me, just to be a slot receiver. And now that Nelson kind of owns that position, I wouldn't see a point in bringing Jordan Matthews back other than just being a familiar face. But the thing about free agency and trade season now, it's just anything can happen, but you have to consider if you don't hear names that you would ever equivocate with another team, it's just because of the salary cap issue. I mean, this was the year that everybody kind of knew was happening, whereas random people would be going to random teams because there's so much money here, but there's not enough there. And they got to do a lot of almost like a square dance and chair dance with salaries. And there's a lot of veteran players who still got years on them that they probably just never got to finish out a full season, or, you know, maybe their quarterback went down, so therefore their play numbers went down. I mean, there's a lot of factors as to why there's so many random names being tossed in the trade pool right now. And the Seahawks are another team that apparently have caught the eye and ear of many people because of the recent shedding of Richard Sherman and the most recent trade, obviously, that the Eagles just got, Michael Bennett, who is a controversial and outspoken defensive end player, but he's what the Eagles will need in terms of fierceness on the field. Now, the off-field stuff is really what became this whole week's hot topic of discussion. Yes, it was impressive that Michael Bennett decided to come to the Eagles like that. Richard Sherman, to me, seems a little bit more unrealistic because he has had 2 Achilles injuries, and I don't think that's even worth it, being that they spent the whole year not starting Sidney Jones because of his Achilles issue. And then you got Jordan Hicks, who's rehabbing from 2 past injuries of the same, 2 on the same one, and then 1 from a college injury. So I think the Eagles realize that Achilles injuries are nothing to play with. You can't just plug guys in when you feel like it and expect them to come back right away. So I don't think Richard Sherman, even just his age or his injury alone, is that intriguing enough at his point in his career to bring him for a 1-year contract. I don't think Howie's interested in signing more 1-year contracts. I think he's interested in putting people in place that could possibly tolerate a huge salary shift in the following year after they're done, because, you know, Howie's going to have to keep moving certain parts around other than the ones that aren't rookies. So I think that, as controversial as it was in Michael Bennett because of his outspokenness and then his recent video that was controversial from Las Vegas about his alleged arrest and or what he said the cops actually said or did to him, I look at it from the community aspect that he does do a lot of positive stuff for the community. And I think regardless of the people, you know, those diehards and South Phillians that I had to listen to on the radio so ignorantly assuming that he was going to be a cancer to the locker room, listening to just the last hour Devon Gibbons show on The Fanatic before I started recording, he made an excellent point. He just said at this point now, you can't break what's not broken. This locker room, no matter who comes in, is not going to disrupt the energy. And there's also a lot of proud, spirited Christians on this team now that I feel like have kind of put an indelible shield of love around the whole. And I don't think the coach is going to allow any kind of bad energy to get in and spoil. It's not going to become what 2005 was after the Super Bowl year with the Eagles. I think that this team knows how to build from within and out. And I think that they have a lot of people on the team that are kind of on the same accord. Now, mind you, when people's names start shifting and people you don't know join the team, you instantly think, okay, what if they don't mix? What if the chemistry doesn't work? Everybody's going to be on their good behavior no matter to just start out the season. Now, when it comes down to, you know, November, December, real stuff starts coming out. So until then, I wouldn't worry about Michael Bennett being a cancer. I would consider the good parts of him as a community organist, as far as community organizer, like Malcolm Jenkins is, and some of the other players that have joined along with the Player Alliance. So I feel like on that end, that's how I look at it. But I'm a Black woman, and there's a lot of voices that I heard on the radio this week from, you know, certain regional callers that seem to, they come from the same parts of Philly or same parts of, you know, upper suburban area, who've probably never dealt with issues, societal issues head on. They naturally assume he's going to be this guy that starts a lot of trouble. I don't see any trouble with him from the door. Now, mind you, the attention with the cops and stuff and all his militant, you know, speaking against the cops and black brutality, that's Never going to stop. I mean, that cat has come out the bag a long time ago since Colin Kaepernick, since even really before him. But it became a huge thing that people thought it was going to ruin the whole sport. And it's never going to, because the reality is all this stuff that pours into sports, and I went on a whole tirade about this in one of my earlier podcasts, but that reality is never going to stop just because Malcolm Jenkins chooses to raise a fist and not kneel. You know, all the other players could decide to kneel again. And what? You know what I mean? If they do decide to do it, some may decide to do it before the anthem starts. Some may decide to do it afterwards and just do a prayer and then stand up during the song. So I don't know. If this starts again, so what? But I don't think it will, as far as, you know, all across the board as much, because as Malcolm said, the point has kind of been made. Now everyone's talking about it. Now everyone's aware. So I think the point of the knee was to show everybody that we need to be included in the conversation. And now that the conversation is happening, there are some people that are just never going to see the forest from the trees. And that's fine, because they're not in that kind of a world where they would deal with it, or they would experience it, excuse me. So I don't think Michael Bennett's a negative on any grounds. He could be a negative to himself if he chooses to, because he's coming in, you know, on a clean slate as far as we're concerned. So if he comes to Philly and decides that he wants to start stuff, that wouldn't be a good look. But I feel like there's so many people in there who communicate openly now in this genre of Eagles that I don't feel like it will get far. You know, the devil has plans no matter what, you know, but we'll see how long, if it ever flares up, if it gets past to the point where it gets to media. I think that a lot of guys are vocal, but I don't think it's like with Andy Reid where everybody could not talk at all. I think Doug respects players' opinions and lets them say what they want to say. But now in this age of Twitter and everybody having a freaking opinion, I don't think he has to worry about it becoming a cancer, because people are able to get their opinions out now. And that's a good thing and a bad thing, but it doesn't have to be a bad thing if the other players don't let it. So I personally agree with Devon. I think that the locker room's too strong now for anybody to disrupt it. You know, if there's any kind of a cancer in the situation, it'll probably actually those who decide to talk outside of the locker room. You know, and those who do, they usually try to keep it within their own issues and not the whole team. So I don't see that even being a relative topic, but never mind. Trade season is always fun. I'm sure there'll be more to talk about. I'm sure I'm going to end up making another podcast next week. I'm sure Howie's about to drop another bomb. Between now and when the time when Wentz decides to get signed or re-upped, those are probably going to be the most extreme salary bumps the Eagles will ever see. And considering that Donovan McNabb had gotten a $100 million contract for 5 years or whatever his was, I assume Wentz is going to be somewhere where a little less than Jimmy G, but somewhere in the neighborhood of what Jimmy G got over in San Francisco. And speaking of San Francisco, the rumor is that Richard Sherman now is looking to visit the 49ers. Supposedly, some people say that he's not going to talk to any team that hasn't showed interest. Apparently, that may or may not be the Eagles, too. So I don't know what to think. I personally don't think he's worth a look. But again, you just never know. And you can't assume. I mean, he sat pretty much most of the rest of the last Seahawks season. So by the time he even comes to training camp or OTAs, he may be a whole nother man. The aggressiveness is basically what makes him a plus as far as being on defense. You know, the defense we have now is already starting to look fierce, but if you put Michael Bennett and him on there, we might be a lethal defense that could probably break some people. So, and that's kind of what you want. So that's the one thing that I do say is an advantage to Richard Sherman. He is a vocal presence in the locker room. And I think that's a good vocal presence. So, and if the Eagles won the Super Bowl with just this kind of mild, chill, fun group, imagine when you get a lot more militant, a lot more powerful on the positions that they need to be, like defense. It could only just light up the playoffs even more next year. And with it being in Atlanta next year, I definitely really feel like the Eagles need to be in the mix for the playoffs next year for real. Because Atlanta will fill up, and that place is a new stadium, and they don't hardly sell it out. Even when the Falcons are in the playoff position, I don't think they really sell it out. So Imagine when Eagle Nation takes over if we end up going back to the Super Bowl next year. So, with that and said, I'm just going to switch over to now talking briefly about the most recent teams, which is our Flyers, Phillies, and Sixers. Phillies still on the tail end of the Grapefruit League. They just won again. They lost today. I'm sorry. They lost in extra innings, which is still an issue with the closer and the pitching. So I don't know what names are being tossed as of right now. You don't know exactly who's on the team. There's been a lot of names being tossed to and fro AAA. All I know is that they better get Hector Neris straight, because he has been the reliable closer, quote unquote, since last season. I don't think he was supposed to be. But they seem to have problems keeping the lead toward the end of games, which coincidentally is the Sixers' issue. But the Sixers are the same players that start the game and end it. So the Phillies, they need to work on that latter part of their bench to help them get help them get the lead and keep it. There's going to be a lot of tight games within the competition, and there's going to be probably a lot of interleague play that the Phillies will need to make up for. And I'm praying, like I said the last podcast, that they actually start the season with some wins to get everybody engaged, because right now everyone's just happy to have baseball back just to switch the environment. But are we really interested in what they have to produce as far as a result, other than the manager Gabe Kepler being a guy who speaks a lot of good stuff, but he's not playing? So we're just hoping that it really truly does translate mentally and physically with these players. I'm looking forward to seeing Aaron Octair. I'm looking forward to seeing all the newbies, JP Crawford. I'm looking forward to see what happens with Tommy. I'm wondering if Tommy is going to end up still being a Philly by the end of the Grapefruit League, if not going into the new season, because they're talking about trading him because he hasn't really been consistent. I don't know. I'm praying that Mikel and Odubel get their heads back in the game. I feel like they kind of tuned out a lot of last year and kind of hid behind the fact that they don't speak a lot of great English. But I think that hopefully with Gabe, he'll kind of challenge them to engage more into learning the language and actually showing that they know what they're doing, as opposed to, tuning out when the season gets kind of long and tired. I feel like them players have become kind of somewhat lazy. I mean, Odubel made a lot of strides last year, but he also did a lot of stupid things. So I'm just hoping their play doesn't get lost in translation, or they may end up on the trade block before the season even ends. So, but as far as that, so far so good. I think the Phillies look pretty cool, but I think there's also just a lot of new faces. You can't really kind of figure out exactly where they're going yet. And it's still very embryonic, so I don't see much of anything other than Gabe just being a positive force in that bullpen and the coaching staff. And supposedly some of our veterans like Larry Bow are now on the scouting team and kind of in a bigger role in the front office. So it's probably a good thing that they have a lot of the vets kind of surrounding all the young organization that is up there now, because what they need to do is start finding guys that they don't have to worry about if they can keep them for more than a year. With the Phillies, with baseball, you want to find guys that definitely live up to their promise and just hang around for a while, as opposed to being 1-year deals. Baseball contracts don't work the same as NFL. So, so that's that. And I mentioned the Sixers. The Sixers are kind of going through a rough patch again, but I do think that they'll make at least the 6th or 7th seed if they're lucky and don't play themselves out. They just need to maintain. They need to put Fultz in. I agree with Devon as well. Fultz needs to get over it, and I think they need to just trust him. I think you getting a first pick and not really knowing exactly what you were getting, but you just assumed he would be good. And now that they realize that he kind of went 180 on them, I think that they should put him back in there. And just like when people tell me in therapy, the only way to face a fear is just to face it. You just got to go through it. And I think he needs to just be put out there. However he shoots at the foul line is however he shoots. Nobody cares. At this point, they need somebody else, because all the regular players like Robert Covington are not living up to their contracts already. And, Joel's tired. Joel's body can't hang for more than a couple times in a row. And he's been trying to be a trooper, but it's obvious he's dragging and he's making stupid turnovers. So for someone as tall as him and accurate as he is when he comes to shooting the ball, he needs someone to back him up and give him time for a break, because Ben's not always going to make those perimeter shots, and he's definitely not going to go for them. But he's young, and Ben, this is his first full season, so I feel like Ben has nowhere to go but up. And he's been quite a bright spot, and he's very fun to watch when he's confident. And he's getting more aggressive now, so I feel like eventually Ben will become that all well-rounded player. So now, with all these things going on, oh yes, and the Flyers, mentioned today that they won. They're on the bubble. I'm sure they'll make the playoffs as well. I don't think they'll go farther than the first round. But I don't know enough about hockey, I'll be honest. I just know that every team that's still playing and almost done their season is at that point where they can make the playoffs. But will they? And are we finally over the Super Bowl haze that seemed to have blessed all the other teams that were going undefeated for a while? And now they're not. So now that the Super Bowl haze is officially over, even though I'm still feeling it as much as I'm waiting for my DVD to come, because I thought Amazon would have delivered it by today, the haze is over, and then now you realize that people are back to bitching and moaning. So, yeah, it's over, but it's still unbelievable that it did happen, but it's never going to cover all the sins of the other teams that are currently playing and are still showing a lot of youth and a lot of flaws. So, it is what it is. I mean, those who ride for the Flyers will ride for them. Those who roll for the Sixers will roll for them. And, when the Phillies get started in regular season, it's going to be fun to go to a game. Everybody has their fan base, but, as a 4-for-4 fan, you can only really cheer on effort. And as long as our guys keep fighting, and they're going to win some and they're going to lose some. And the reality is, now that the Eagles have set that bar, we're really technically only waiting for the Eagles to play again at this point, because they have a lot to live up to. And I think this coming season even makes it even more susceptible to a letdown because of the high that became 2017-2018 season. I mean, that season didn't look like it was going to be much other than in the beginning, as it developed around December and January, and then finally in February. So in a way, people want to kind of compare the buildup of the Eagles as they will to the Flyers and the Sixers, but they're obviously three different brands for a reason. And as much as they've been doing a lot of cross marketing and, having players visit other players' games and give each other's jerseys, it's showing a general promotion cross teamination factor. I once said, because they showed Kelsey singing at the Flyers game. But at the end of the day, these players, some of them had been there already. And the Sixers have new faces and the Flyers have a ton of new faces. So they have to wait to get there next year where they can finally have that chemistry. And the problem is it's not going to happen in a short time. So I just wish luck to both teams, the Sixers and the Flyers, that they finish with a decent record and that they do make the playoffs, just for the fact of getting there, considering they know now, and I think fans are saying, as much as we want to hate Brett Brown, I think Brett Brown has tolerated a lot, and he's a good coach in the sense that he still believes in his team, no matter what. And that's what you want in a coach. You don't want a coach to give up on you, and you definitely don't want the team to give up on them. So at this point now, I mean, people are picking and choosing, what people they like on each of these teams. But at the end of the day, we just want results as fans, and that's all anybody could ask for. So with that, I end on the note that with the Sixers and the whole controversy over will LeBron come, LeBron has never really said he's technically going to Philly. I think LeBron is just entertaining the idea that people have thrown out of teams that he'd be interested in if he would choose to leave Cleveland again. I hope it doesn't turn into this whole decision crap. That's one of the reasons I still don't like him. And I also don't like the fact that I feel like the vulnerability that he shows sometimes comes off as just bitchy as opposed to just being, an emotional man. I think that sometimes LeBron just, he gets catered to a lot in the press. And I think sometimes he's also the hardest person that gets, he gets the most criticism in a hard way. So you hate him or you like him. And that's basically where you are with LeBron. You either like him or you don't. I respect his play. I don't care for him as a personality. But then again, I don't know him. So I just know if he comes to Philly and we win, I'm happy. I'm happy for the city. But I'm one of those people that are kind of just like, as much as Mike Missinley hates that I don't like him based on something that's nothing to do with basketball. Look, I have my opinion. Some people, I mean, let's face it, the Eagles team was likable, and that's why it's even more exciting and more celebratory that they were the team that actually won the Super Bowl, because they were a likable team and they played well. So when you kind of have a likability factor, it's kind of part of your package. And, if I don't, something about LeBron that makes me want to just smack him sometimes, but then another part, I'm happy that he won it for Cleveland finally. But then another part of me goes, why does the media have to care whether he decides to leave or not? No other player gets followed for all his progress like LeBron does. But, you take advantage of the avenues you're given with, with the hard work that you put in. I mean, this dude, he was groomed for basketball and the lifestyle that comes with it. So it comes with a package. It's annoying, but it's no different from any press that Beyonce gets and any other person that pretty much walks across the street and makes the 10 o'clock news. But I guess really my intentions against him really aren't based on any true facts. It's just, you get a vibe. And sometimes some people give me a vibe that I'm just like, ugh, God, if I see them again. I think more of the hype is what turns me off as opposed to LeBron himself, but that's really all it is. He is a great player. He's definitely, I kind of think the king thing is a little pushing it, but I never like the idea of calling Beyonce the queen all the time. You know what I mean? All the labels, queen of this, queen of that, king of that. Nobody is. There's just people who obviously own their genre and do it well. The only person I really understand that's labeled like that is Michael Jackson, because he created a lot of stuff that pop people still to this day are duplicating. And to me, that channeled through a lot of venues of music. And I think with LeBron, he has his lane and he just does it well. I don't think he's transcended everything. I think he just has a lane and he drives it well. So with that, I will say, here's to the new possibilities of another month. I mean, this is March, but it's almost about to be April. I mean, even though it's only the second or third week, you blink and it'll be literally be April. Well, now officially as of tonight it will, because time goes forward. So you spring forward into Sunday, and next thing you know, it'll be 10 o'clock in the morning and I'll be exhausted. But then I know I have to get ready for work on Monday. And supposedly there's another snowstorm coming. So I'm praying that won't even come. I pray it'll just be a coating and it'll just leave. I'm really over the winter. I'm ready for spring. I'm ready for dresses. I'm ready to just let everything happen. I'm ready for the spring to begin as far as baseball season and going out and getting hot dogs and having a beer and just watching fireworks and, hanging out without a jacket. That's what I'm looking forward to. So I'm sure you are too. Thank you for listening. I started this song. I queued the song Annie Up just because basically at this point, everybody's kind of just giving out what they can give as far as this trade season, see what they can get back. And so this is Annie Up season, if you really look at it. Free agency, NFL draft, soon it'll be the OTA, soon we'll be talking about training camp. It'll be a whole new thing. And hopefully this year, the Eagles will decide to do a Kelly Green night for Color Rush on Thursday. That would actually be great if they did that for the opener, because the opener is, I heard, on a Thursday. And then finally, hopefully next month, if not sooner, we'll find out exactly which day the Eagles play in London so that I can plan my trip with the Green Legion. Sign up for thegreenlegion.com if you haven't. I'm telling you, these guys know how to package a fan tailgate / trip. So this will be my first away game going through the Green Legion as well as going to London. So 2018 is already looking to be a stellar year as far as a sports year, that is. But thank you for listening. That's my thoughts for today. I'm sure in the next podcast I will discuss whatever bombs Howie Roseman has decided to throw at us, to keep us talking. Because when my Twitter lights up, suddenly my email lights up, my texts light up, I light up, my posts light up. So, it's social media, baby. Whatever you want to throw out there happens. And I'm sure we'll all discuss whatever the next move the Eagles will do. And when the Sixers make the playoffs, hopefully they will impress and, get further than we think. Hope they all surprise us. Flyers too. Here's to the upcoming team of winners. Thank you for listening to Birds of a Feather. I'm your girl, AJ, the suburban radio princess, should I say. And, listen to all my other podcasts on YouTube or Spreaker app. I'm trying to get my links on SoundCloud as well. And thank you for joining me. Here's back to MOP. Peace out.